Hi everyone, I am Matteo Collina, calling in from Italy, and this is James Dell.
Hello. Plugging in my laptop. So.
Yeah. Today it's the HTTP2 team meeting, which is me and James at this point. I hope somebody else will join, but we are the two people mainly involved in this new initiative. So. Well, I'm doing a little bit of tweeting work for the Hangout thingy. I will let James start talking about the current status of the thing.
Okay. So where we're at right now, I think in January, I worked on a refactor of the internal code. Things are running much more efficiently now. With the way that we're interfacing with ng HTTP. The JavaScript API, the low-level API, has been simplified to de-emphasize API compatibility with the old HTTP module. Still very similar in terms of how the server is set up and that it registers a connection listener. But the API, rather than having separate request and response objects, there's just a single stream object that is a duplex that handles both directions. The performance is really good. On my limited VM test image that I have here, I'm able to get about 30,000 requests per second, and that's only with a 2-core VM that's running on my laptop here. So it's not a very powerful base to benchmarks on, but we're still getting some pretty good numbers.
It would be really handy if we put it a little text file or something. We can delete it beforehand on how to run those benchmarks, so we can compare on the same numbers.
Yep.
Even if somebody else wants to replicate what you have done, you can. So they can.
Yeah.
So if you can just script it, more or less, A, B, C, do these steps. Because I might have been running slightly different numbers than you, okay? So, right. And also different machines, because there might even be some inconsistencies between Linux, Windows, and Mac. Yeah. There is also that problem. So
yeah, I've noticed that significantly. There's actually a pretty broad variance between just Linux and Mac OS.
Yeah, I know.
On us, so it's pretty. It's something we're gonna have to take a look at. The key bottleneck that I'm running into right now is reducing the amount of copying of the data that needs to happen. So, for example, headers. We're passing in for every header pair that we pass in, it basically ends up being 2 copy operations. Because we have to buffer those and wait until those are ready to be sent, and then ng will also copy those. So for every header pair, there's 2 copies that are happening on the way out. So we need to try to optimize that. And that really, the reason we have to do that really comes to the way V8 handles those strings rather than how we necessarily handle them internally.
Are we setting them as persistent?
These are strings that are coming from the JavaScript side, so the user code is setting the headers.
Okay. Yes, okay, right? Okay. No, well, yes, but are we holding the reference on the C side, or no?
No, because those could be coming in as UTF-8. There's, we have to write them out.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Right. Yes, those are not buffers. Yes, you're right.
Right, they're not buffers.
So, yeah, sorry, it's
right. And then if you look at the way that ng expects them, basically it expects an array of structs. So we have to convert those inbound headers from the object representation into an array representation, and then convert that to the array of structs that ng uses to copy from. So I'm just working on optimizing that so that there's less data copying going on.
So all of this is your around 10 PR, right?
Yeah, the around 10.
Okay. When is this going to be?
I'm hoping to have it ready to land by the end of this week.
Okay, perfect, awesome. Awesome stuff.
And once we reduce the amount of copying that's going on, that's going to be, I think, a fairly significant performance boost. On the inbound headers, the inbound headers, what we have right now is that HTTP expects that headers are typically always 1 byte, right? ASCII names, and the spec says ASCII headers. They're ASCII values. And there are encoding standards that allow you to encode other character sets, but typically a header is ASCII only. Unfortunately, implementations haven't followed that, right? And there's existing code out there that passes UTF-8, and HTTP2, the HPAC is actually set up to allow for UTF-8 values. So when we're receiving headers in, we can make the name an external string, so we don't actually have to do any copying. But we can't do that with the value, so we also have to copy the values and convert them to UTF-8 on the way in. Yeah. So I'm like,
it's less. Yeah. Well, all this copying is bad, but it's got. We can't really avoid. We can't really avoid it. Like
the only other thing we can do is pass the headers in as buffers. Hold
on. So I think this is something that if we can pass them as buffers, we need to run some prototypes with this, but. We can have them as buffers in the low-level API, and then have the conversion being done on the flight, more or less, if needed, right. on the compatibility layer. Okay, because one of the key problems there is that I think we should really want to have that little low-level API for microservices and other stacks that needs it.
Yeah,
and a high-level, more user-friendly API for everybody else. So yes,
I would be if we focus things on just the string stream level.
Yeah,
I would be okay with making it so that we only work with those headers as buffers. It makes it irritating from a user point of view, but it does allow us to get quite a bit more performance out of it.
Yeah, I think again, I think it's I would keep this separate from the on the reading side. I will keep it slightly separate from the writing side. Okay, so that if we can just do it afterwards, like land what it is, because it's been around for some time, and I want to land my stuff as well. So there is, because for everybody, there is these other PRs that I've been working on. There are 2 PRs open, one from James, which is around 10, and my PR, which is the compatibility layer. So basically, we have decided last call to split the lower level components of HTTP2 into these lower levels is super fast, and a higher level, which is the HTTP1 compatibility thing with the request and response and all the goodness you might want to think about. Okay, so it's easy to port applications from HTTP1 to HTTP2. Okay, or it's as easy as possible. So that included like rewriting some chunk of streams and so on. So that is almost done, but it weighs around 10 for landing. And after that, we will need to probably start writing unit tests and ironing out compatibility, because the full thing is definitely, I would say, it works, but I'm not super confident.
Ish.
The round 9 code, I was able to make segfault a couple of times.
Right. Yeah, the round 10 should segfault significantly less. What I've seen is it segfaults less on Linux and Windows than it does on OS X. So there's something happening with OS X there. I'm not quite sure what it is. I was able to uncover a V8 bug, which is interesting. It's a pretty deep one in their garbage collection, which is fun. But it was a bug. It was tracing down a segfault in this code that actually uncovered that one. So I think for the most part, I mean, we're probably about 90% of the way there. But you know, we until we get those unit tests in place, which is really going to require us to actually have a client in place.
Yes,
that's going to be hard. So I did talk with the folks from Google.
Yeah.
They are going to start working on a client, but I don't know their exact timeline. So we need to, you know, I think we need to start making sure we're inviting them to here and just kind of be a little more persistent about, okay, when are we going to get this? You know, when are we going to see something?
Yeah, well, it's so this is a matter of priority, okay, really.
Yeah.
Like April is in 2 months' time, okay?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And if we want to land these even like a super experimental, we will need to land it by end of March, probably. Yep. So if we want to have some basic cover, we can keep working on it while it's landed, okay? It's not a matter of that we can't, that need to be working, have a shape of working things while it's landed. We can keep landing things and releasing them as we go. In fact, it will be a great way for testing this out, but it's I would say we need to have some form of client, okay? I would have to say, well, I plan for having a client in the next maybe 2-3 weeks, and then have somebody that sit down and actually like help out in writing that client in March, and then use it to write some unit tests, and then we can, I don't know, iterate from there.
If what I've been thinking is, if we don't see anything real, you know, any real progress on the Google side within the next couple of weeks, then I'll probably take a week or two to hack out a really basic, simple client that we can use to at least start building some tests.
Yeah, I have I can have some time to work on it in the weeks from on the weeks after the VM Neutrality Summit. So not the one right after, the like from the mid-March to beginning of April. I can slot some time in, and I can probably also ask Colin if he wants to help and do a chunk of that as well. I don't know. I will try.
Okay. I'm trying to think, you know, what are the major outstanding pieces still? So there's quite a bit just of the HTTP requirements. So things like handling with specific error codes, like 304 shouldn't have a trailer, or, you know, which one shouldn't have a body, and that kind of thing. All of that needs to figure out how much of that we want to put into the lower level API versus how much do we want to put into the higher level.
I would say it's most of it should be, at least from my point of view, in the higher level.
Right.
But regarding like something that is completely, so the line there is really thin. So we might want to have some stuff of that in the lower level and some stuff of that in the higher level. Okay.
Right.
So if it's like this status code can't have that, and it's just so I found this bug regarding the order of the status. So if you put the status needs to be before the headers. Now that thing needs to be lower level from my point of view, because it's not. It's so that is the level where I say it's lower level than it's higher level for my point of view. I don't know.
Right. So the so anything then that is based on the framing protocol, the HTTP2 framing protocol is lower level. Anything else that is an HTTP specific semantic needs to be at the compatibility level. Okay. Okay, that's going to simplify things for me at the lower level. By the way,
well, we need, after that, we will need to sit down and look at the spec and
we got to sketch them all out.
Sketch a full a bunch of issues out so that we can tap into the army of collaborators. That can help us, like, because we can probably, like, to write all of that, we can probably do a full code and learn with 60 people doing things.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Okay.
Like, no, there is a bunch of like little things like, well, that header can't happen. Like 3 or 4 can't have trailers.
Right.
The problem is we need to sit down and write.
Yeah, we got to write them all out. So.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm trying to think if there's anything else as far as priorities. So yeah, I'm going to try to lock down round 10 by the end of this week, hopefully sooner.
Yep.
I got a few other things that I'm working on this week, though, namely things like the error codes and things like that, over on the main repo. Just trying to think through. So you're still working on the compatibility layer? How close do you think that is?
I am stuck at the moment. Like
okay,
I'm waiting for round 10 to happen. So okay. What I can do without the full situation, how I did the compatibility layer, I adopted the same ability, the same thing that I did that it is happening in HTTP1. Okay, which is do not have the response inherit from writable, so that we can avoid all the copy. Now, in HTTP1, we are still inheriting from readable on the request side, okay, which involves some copying. Now, it's not in the flame graphs, is not coming up as a bottleneck. So I'm not too much concerned on that, but we might want to reassess before we land and say, if it's too bad, I can ditch it, but it's not going to look nice. Okay, I'm just saying there is it's removable in the sense that I can have the exact same API but baked by the underlying buffer. Okay, because I know how well the full streaming thing works to do that. But saying that it will be either pretty or easy to maintain.
No.
So I'm not, like, the writable size is easy to maintain because we are really doing the same thing on HTTP1 and it's actually easy. Like, it's not a lot of code.
Right. Okay. So I'll definitely get around 10. I'll make it a priority, see if we can get that wrapped up sooner than by midweek.
Yeah, if we can get that going. Well, the basic important thing is we need to get that going and really start looking into for a client. So if there is a priority, there is like having a decision on the client side of things. So if somebody else is contributing, we are happy. Otherwise, it's time for us to start ramping up our game and doing it ourselves.
Agreed. Okay. The other thing we need to do, aside from cataloging, all of those HP requirements, we need to catalog all the tests. There are a ton of HP tests in repo already. We need an equivalent set, and we need a checklist for those. So
yes,
I'll make I'll spend some time this week to make a catalog of what the existing tests are. And then try to, from there, describe what the equivalent test needs to be for HP2 so that we can, same basic thing, see if, how many of those are going to be more complicated, more in depth that somebody with a little more advanced knowledge would need to do versus, something we can go to the army of collaborators to see if we can get people.
Well, this is, by the way, we have 14 watchers. So, hi, folks. If you want to contribute here, there is a lot of work to be done. So, please open an issue, check with us, write on this, write on this issue, whatever. So, thank you, folks.
So, okay.
I think we are good to go at this point. Do you have anything else you want to talk about? I think we covered all bases really. So
okay. I just got a message from Tello saying he's working on the tests already. So thank you, Tello.
Who is working on the tests already? Hey, thank you.
Tello. Yes, thank you very much for that. So there's a lot to do. It's not going to be a quick thing by any stretch of the imagination, but I think we're in a much better position now than we were, especially since that round 9. All the big refactor really helped out. Once we optimize the internal copying, to avoid as much copying as possible, and once we get to the client done, I think that we should be in a really good position. So I think we know what we have to get done. It's just a matter of just doing it.
Yeah.
So it's always just a matter of just doing it.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's software. So yeah. So thank you, James, and thanks to everybody that watched this.
Yeah.
I think that's all.
Okay.
I will pass down. Did you take any notes, or I will just put a quick summary after this into?
Well, let's just do a summary. I wasn't taking any notes. So.
Yeah, I will. You want to do it? We want me doing it? I will...
If you want to, I got another call. I got to jump on to.
Yes, exactly. So
I got a whole morning of calls. So.
Perfect. Okay. Bye, folks. I will do it. Bye-bye.
Right, thanks. All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.